Hello there, and welcome once again to the Set of the Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers joining you today, as we are each week, meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues. We welcome in an old friend today.
Familiar face, Joe Castiglione, the athletic director at the University of Oklahoma, is making another appearance with us to give us his annual OU athletic update on what's going on in athletics.
Well, there's a lot to update.
There's a lot going on. That's right.
Certainly is.
Beyond the playing field.
Things have changed a lot in the last few months, and we'll get Joe Castiglione's perspective today on the verdict. You're watching The Verdict with Kent Myers and Mick Cornett, and today, Joe Castiglione.
Prices at the pump are hitting new highs this week. In other news,
gasoline is expected to top $4 a gallon this week.
Expect drivers seeing sticker shock at the pump.
OPEC has raised the price of oil again, and Wall Street worries.
Well, a full tank of gas is going to set drivers back.
Straight ahead, the latest news on
If you need big accounting firm expertise but aren't happy with the value or level of partner engagement from your current national firm, contact Hogan Taylor. Hogan Taylor provides national-level public accounting expertise with high-touch, local partner service in all areas of tax, audit, business valuation, and litigation support. Contact us at hogantaylor.com/the verdict. Hogan Taylor, big enough to know, small enough to care.
Welcome back to the Set of the Verdict. Mick Cornett, Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Once again, we have a guest that has been on 14 times. This is his 14th appearance. Joe Castiglione, the athletic director at the University of Oklahoma, did his undergraduate work at the University of Maryland, got his master's degree at the University of Oklahoma as an adjunct professor at the University of Oklahoma. He, in 1998, came to the University of Oklahoma as athletic director. Since that time, he has brought the athletic department to new heights in accomplishments, both from a student-athlete standpoint and from a performance standpoint on the field. He serves on a number of committees, one of which is the NCAA Men's Basketball Committee, which gets started on men's basketball to try to see who's going to be in the final 68 teams in the NCAA tournament. And we're here today to get an update on athletics at the University of Oklahoma and other topics. Joe, welcome back.
Kent, Mick, always good to be with you. Get to see each other a little bit here and there, but great to be with you. At least those 13 other times I've been on the show hasn't canceled your run on TV.
No, it's come close a time or two, but that hasn't quite done it.
Yeah.
I bet the question you hate the most is what's new, because there is so much that's new, you probably don't know where to start.
That's probably correct. But it's all great, because even part of our own department core values is a commitment to continuous improvement. So even if we've done something well, or had success, don't really have much time to celebrate it. You're on to the next year, usually with new teams, new faces, student athletes, because of the way university cultures work, and it keeps it very fresh.
Well, I'm going to talk to you about conference realignment. Is the conference better than it was? How would you weigh the changes that have been made?
Well, it's certainly as strong as it was. Of course, we'd rather keep the 12 that we had, or be at 12 with those institutions. Weren't looking to have to shuffle the membership, but all of those situations were out of our control. There were institutions that made decisions that they felt was in their best interests and moved somewhere else. But I'm very grateful for the leadership we had within the conference between our presidents, chancellor, certainly our president, David Boren, was very much involved in that. Burns Hargis at Oklahoma State University, as you know, is the chair of the board of directors of the Big 12 Conference. And so we have great leadership, and people really came together, figure out what we were going to do that could increase or at least sustain the strength and viability and stability of the conference going forward. So adding 2 great schools, Texas Christian University, TCU, in West Virginia, a flagship institution of the state of West Virginia, I really think gave us strength. I mean, you look at the sport of football, even though we have several other sports in play, volleyball, soccer, cross country, et cetera, right now, but football in the Big 12 is a marquee sport. The 2 institutions that we just mentioned are ranked in the top 15 in the country right now, along with Oklahoma and several others, that makes our conference strong. So I think you could argue it may even have gotten better in many ways. Certainly the things that we're doing going forward are helping us get better. And I think one thing that I'd mention, just in closing of this comment is, the moves that we made in the late spring by partnering with the SEC to create that Champions Bowl. That literally was a game changer in the development of the new model of college football postseason.
Talk about that just a little bit. What does that mean?
Well, heretofore, we've had a situation in our college football landscape where conferences had aligned with various bowls. Usually, obviously, sending their champion to the bowl for years. And old Big 8, it was the Orange Bowl. And during the years of the Big 12, it's been the Fiesta Bowl. And while we've had great relationships with all of those bowls and want to continue those relationships, this particular change made a difference because people started talking about a college football playoff, a subject that we've actually visited during maybe 10 of the 13 shows that we had before, and why or why not, and the appetite, which was really invisible. People just didn't want college football playoff. Well, for whatever reason, that changed. And the conference commissioners have been looking at an entirely different postseason model, which, as you know, now has emerged, which would, in 2 years, starting to feature the best 4 teams. We could talk about why I like this model over some of the others, but the changing aspect was 2 conferences of the strength of the Big 12 and the SEC coming together to align with 1 bowl game, much like the Rose Bowl has with the Big 10 and the Pac-12. And so that changed the game because in the past, some of the criteria had been sort of shaped and massaged around the Rose Bowl because they didn't really want to do exactly what the other 3 bowl games were doing in the BCS structure. They did some of it, but not all of it. And I think people got tired of either, of having a bowl have slightly different rules than the others. And so this changed it, and 2 conferences came together and created such a great game at the end of the regular season.
Do you consult with your football coaches on these types of decisions, or are you guys so aligned that you pretty much think alike on these issues?
Both. I think there's a great deal of discussion I have with Bob Stoops and President Boren when we're talking about these issues, so I have a clear understanding of how they feel. For instance, I know, and I felt the same way, that Coach Stoops wanted to maintain some semblance of what is a bowl game experience for the student athletes, our players. In the new model, there's going to be all this focus on the semifinals and going to the national championship game, and all that is great, but student athletes, not every one of them will get to have the chance to play in a national championship game, obviously. And not many of them will have the chance, in their career to play in a bowl game. So you want to preserve that, not just for Oklahoma, but I'm talking for college football, and I think we were able to do that. And, those are points that we talked about ahead of time. But a lot of other things we talk about, so when we go in those meetings, know exactly how they feel.
Talk about the recently announced, what I'll just probably inarticulately call the OU TV network.
Sooner Sports TV.
Sooner Sports TV, thank you. Tell us about that.
Well, it's an endeavor to try and create a broader distribution strategy for our video content, primarily video content. Something we've been looking at for probably 4 or 5 years, and in earnest for the last 2.5. We know what we have available to us after our conference television agreements are in place, which, as you know, involve all but one of our football games. So all live football basically is in the conference television package. And then the vast majority of our men's basketball and some women's basketball flow to conference agreements. And some of those agreements do conference championships and a few other events like some baseball, softball, and that kind of thing. Well, there's still a lot of content left, and we wanted to be able to make it visible. We haven't really had the clearance to do that before. Yeah. We had the content, we just didn't have the outlet. And so, as you know, it's going back now 14 years when I started here, created the Sooner Sports Network, which was at that point a group of stations, over-the-air channels. You don't use that phrase very much anymore, given how much is on cable and satellite. But we had that, put basketball on, again, using what was available to us after the conference package selected games. So we just have a broader opportunity now. And we were looking at everything from a 24/7 type of channel to this branded programming on an already distributed cable system. And we selected the latter because it gave us a chance to reach more of our fans faster than the development of the 24/7. Of course, the economics around both were a big part of that decision too. So we had to determine sustainability both from content and from the financial business model to make it work. And we're very proud to be able to do that and do it with one of the world's leading media partners in Fox Sports Television.
Need to get to a break. We're talking to Joe Castiglione on The Verdict. We'll be right back.
The thing that has made the most sense for me is realizing that I am still an educator, and that is what I do at the Chickasaw Nation. I'm Dr. Amanda Cobb-Greetham. I'm a historian, and I'm Chickasaw. The Chickasaw Cultural Center is amazing. It is a very, very special place devoted to the sharing and to the celebration of Chickasaw history and culture. State-of-the-art technology, exhibits that are not like anything I've ever seen. The Spirit Forest is incredible, and you feel as if you have actually just walked into a forest with huge trees all around you. It's timeless, and yet it's sort of also representative of our time depth, to really just sort of reach through time and touch the past. By the end of the exhibits, you really have a sense of Chickasaw cultural and political resurgence and the extent to which we are a healthy, dynamic, and vital tribe today. Chickasaws have always been an inclusive people. This is something for the whole community and for the state of Oklahoma.
Hear that? It's the sound of an industry, 83,000 strong, creating jobs for nearly 350,000. A $52 billion a year being pumped into our economy. It's the sound of Oklahoma's oil and natural gas industry, our heart for the state and our people. And it beats on and on and on.
When you have something important to communicate, it becomes clear that there's a lot of competition for your audience's attention. So how can your message stand out and actually resonate with your audience? Legal Graphics has the answers. The team at Legal Graphics will work with you to plan, design, and even test your presentation to ensure your message will be heard and remembered. Call Legal Graphics today to schedule an appointment. The readiness is all.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. We're visiting with Oklahoma Athletic Director Joe Castiglione. How does the fan interact with this new television endeavor or video endeavor?
Well, the easiest way right now is to look to Soonersports.com, our long-term website, and that presence we've had for many years. There's a cable guide, a if you want to call it a program guide, that will allow our fans to know where certain events are going to be placed. You know, there'll be press conferences, there'll be special feature programming, live events, what we call encore performances, you know, football and other events, you know, that we have access to. Those events will be described on that website, and you can go there regularly and find out.
I would think there'd be some level of a recruiting advantage. If you're recruiting a volleyball player from Southern California and she or her parents know that their games are going to be on the internet or wherever they're going to be, it might be you know, a small niche, but I mean, that's a way they can stay in touch.
Well, this approach is really unique. I mean, we've seen the 24/7 approach in the market, and that was unique, but Oklahoma's out there with the first of its type in a collegiate branded programming space. And so yes, and for the programs that we have available to us, they'll be on not only locally, but the space in our state, Fox Sports Oklahoma, is already distributed via DirecTV or Dish Network. So if you're on the coast one way or the other or somewhere and you have those, you can go to the sports tier and find that. Some of the programming will develop on a digital tier, so soon on your computer, on your iPad, on your phone, you'll be able to follow it there as well.
Are you going to show the movie Bootlegger's Boy when it is
Probably
produced?
have to get the rights to that, but maybe you should go back and do a history of the Supreme Court decision, which one of our friends was involved in directly. Nick, what do you think about that? That'd be a great history. That was the forerunner for each institution to be able to do these kinds of things. You know, we're referring to Judge Burciaga's decision that ruled on antitrust and gave colleges and universities across the country a chance to do something with their own rights.
And Kent was very much involved in that,
Yes.
that 30 years ago.
Well, we take the position, at least in my class, that that's the most significant from standpoint of impact on consumers, the most significant private antitrust case ever litigated. I mean, public antitrust cases where the government sues IBM may have more to do. But more folks watch college football now than ever before.
No question. Mick, I would even tell you that since that time, people have heard the word antitrust more than ever. They can't always spell it or define it, but boy, when something goes wrong in our business, right away they throw up the flag of antitrust, whether it is or not.
Well, I'll tell you how to worry about it or not. If they write antitrust and they hyphenate it, you don't need to worry about it because they can't spell it. Antitrust is not hyphenated. What were the considerations that the conference looked at in adding West Virginia and TCU? Geographically, quite disparate from each other and from many of the other schools. How did that decision get made?
Well, I think you have to look at them two separate decisions. One was, to look at the landscape, college athletics, after the two institutions, Missouri and A&M, left, find out which institutions would fit, best in the Big 12. And there are a set of criteria that were vetted by members of our conference, our presidents and chancellors, as I mentioned earlier, et cetera. We had an expansion committee made up of a variety of our governance groups. So we wanted to try and look at the like institutions, missions, and so on, and so West Virginia fits that. It's the flagship institution of the state of West Virginia, and it has great athletic and academic progress in the last 15 to 20 years, and so that became very attractive. And then already within our footprint, we had an institution in TCU that has grown their university exponentially, really, in the last 15 or 20 years.
A private university.
A private, which, in our conference we had one already, Baylor University, but it made the most sense because of where they are, in their university culture as well as athletics. And then, you think about what's the best for our long-term stability. And at the end of the day, those were the two best decisions. It doesn't mean that there aren't other viable institutions out there if, in fact, we decide to expand down the road, but those were the two institutions that made the most sense.
How much pressure was there to have 12 schools?
There was some and still some. We kind of joke, the Big Ten has 12, and the Big 12 has 10, but right now, the model of 10 works very well for this league. And as we've referenced in a couple other comments, the moves that this league has made, the Champions Bowl, the new television agreement that we just signed, which was actually an extension of one with ESPN and Fox. So you have the partners that are validating this model works. Having said that, we have a dashboard right out in front of us. We're not oblivious, to conference expansion down the road if and when it makes sense. And it goes back to those other kinds of criteria. Does it grow the value of our conference? And I mean value not just in terms of monetary proportions, but overall, does it lend itself to long-term stability? If it doesn't meet those two models, then there really isn't any reason to expand.
In a world of college athletics, it's always trying to create more inventory. The conference championship game, disappeared. Your thoughts on that going forward?
I'm not Nostradamus, but given the new postseason college football model, some of the conferences may start to question whether or not the conference playoff or championship game is really in their best interests, because that new model will feature the 4 best teams, whether you won the championship or not, because each conference settles their championship differently. And with all the variables in play, we really pushed hard to pick the 4 best teams. Sometimes the conference champion, determined by a playoff, could have 3 losses. They happen to beat a better team.
Sure, that's
just
happened.
on that. Just on that day. But they may not necessarily be the best or one of the best 4 teams in that given year. So they may look at the conference playoff and say, I don't know if this is in our best interest. Now, as you know, in the Big 12, we're playing each other. So we have a full round robin. Our conference champion will be determined by how we play against each other. We'll monitor it. 5 years down the road, world has changed. Maybe we have to rethink whether or not have a conference championship game. And if that's the case, then we can reconsider what conference expansion does for us.
Okay, now this 14 playoff, is there a chance the Big 12 would have 0 participants? Is there a chance they'd have more than 1 participant?
Both. It depends on whether we have the team, and that's the same for any conference for that matter. We have to have one of the 4 best teams. Now, normally, if you look back over the history of our league, if you look back even to the Big 8 days, when many of these schools were playing each other, one of our teams was generally in the hunt for a national championship at the end of every season. So if you look at history, chances are it'd be unlikely to have a year where we didn't have one of the 4 spots. In some years, you may have 2.
Some years you may.
You just never know.
We are run out of time, but as always, we never get near the material we hope to get with you, Joe. But thank
Does
you
that
for
mean
coming
we
back
get
on.
to do a 15th show?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right.
Joe Castiglione, today's guest on The Verdict. Kit and I'll be back with a final word when we return.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
In Oklahoma, we enjoy a high quality of life due to good, well-paying jobs. Commercial real estate professionals play a significant role in bringing new businesses and investments to Oklahoma. The commercial real estate community has come together to market Oklahoma's commercial properties nationwide through a free public website, okcommercialproperty.com. We are invested in keeping Oklahoma strong and growing because economic development ensures quality of life.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information. And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers. We're wrapping up a show with Joe Castiglione, the athletic director at the University of Oklahoma, who was making his 14th appearance on The Verdict.
Joe's always good with his time. He's always got a lot to bring us up to date on. We didn't touch half of it today.
We didn't, but we talked about a lot of substantive things. Very exciting venture going forward with their video and their television content and trying to deal with all of the television networks and the Goliath that is ESPN and trying to figure out what inventory you can keep for yourself and how best to distribute it to your fans and your alumni and your student athletes and their parents. And so there's just a lot of decisions that almost makes you dizzy just thinking about it, but Oklahoma's on the front end, and they're fortunate to have a guy like Joe Castiglione out leading the way.
Indeed, and they always refer to them as student athletes, and the over 600 student athletes that are present at the University of Oklahoma, Joe told us, had a cumulative grade average of above 3 points.
That's
quite an
pretty salty.
accomplishment.
Let's take a look at some website information. You can check out what they're offering down at the OU Athletic Department at Soonersports.com. That's Soonersports.com. We also have a website. Love for you to go there and tell us about a guest you'd like to see on a future edition of The Verdict. It's theverdict.tv. For Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett. See you next week.
The preceding program was produced exclusively for the Cox Channel.